it out, I guess. So this is Brother Melito, 2nd century Asia Minor, West Turkey, on Christ Jesus, Yeshua HaMashiach. And it goes on. Maybe I should just a little there so I can see what is going on the mobile. So he begins. And we lost a lot of material from Melito because apparently the Romanizers didn't really like his material. So it seems like his books were widespread at some point. So anyway, that he was actually pretty popular reading, but sadly, I don't know. Sadly, it seems like Rome had a thing to do in regards of getting his material away. But anyway, we do have a little here and a little there and all that. I've pretty much read all of it, I think, that is existing. Who knows, maybe more will pop up and all that, but some of his material is really, really good, I think. So this is something I found when I was talking to the main guy in regards of the so-called Jehovah's Witnesses, the false witnesses I call them. But anyway, because they reject that Jesus is God in the flesh, so they say there's only Jehovah, and that's pretty much, the Father, and the Son is not Jehovah and all that. So of course that's absolutely, not biblical. It's not historical. It's not, they have their own version of the Bible and all that, where they try to write out the divinity of Jesus Christ, which of course doesn't work. And you have to, why was it that the Jews executed Yeshua? Well, because he made himself into God. They saw it as blasphemy, what he was saying. So they understood it, and you can still see today that the Jews, understand what he was saying and all that. So to say that Jesus is not God is just, you have to be kidding me. Anyway, so it goes on. This is he who took a bodily form in the Virgin. So this is from 2nd century. So, and the right area of Asia Minor, nowadays Turkey and all that. So this is he who took a bodily form in the Virgin, and was hanged upon the tree, and was buried within the earth, and suffered not dissolution. Yeah. He who rose from the place of the dead, and raised up men from the earth, from the grave below, to the heights of heaven. I do wonder if that is in regards of the Matthew thing, but I'm not entirely sure in regards to that information, in regards to how that works. But anyway, whatever. Maybe he, maybe there was some that was resurrected. I think it's the Matthew. I think it's actually only in the Matthew where it talks about, people, afterwards being raised up or something like that. So anyway, and he seems to confirm that. I'm not entirely sure. But anyway, let's go on. This is the Lamb that was slain. This is the Lamb that opened not his mouth. This is he who was born of Mary, fair sheep of the fold. This is he who was taken from the flock, and was led to the slaughter, and was slain in the evening. And we also have a Jewish source talking about the Yeshu, as they call him, which is an acronym for may his name be obliterated or blotted out. And I'm not, whatever you want to call it, anti-Semitic and all that, just because it's interesting that people pull that card sometimes, talking about, the Jews have issues in regards to Jewish mysticism. They rejected Yeshua as the Messiah, so wouldn't you expect them to go astray? Well, I guess they were already going astray in the when Yeshua was actually here. But anyway, they have a lot of things going. And there actually is a Jew that wrote a book on all these that seems to get really good grades and all that. And he goes deeper into all these things. So. And I can just but that, yeah, absolutely. So it's nothing to do with anti-Semitic or whatever. Actually, it would be anti-Jewish, right? Because Semitic, there's a lot of Semitics, right? And that would be Arabs included, right? And Arameans and so forward. Anyway, I think Semitic comes in regards of coming from Shem, in regards of the one of the sons of Noah, if I remember correctly. I'm a little rusty here, and the protocol, the fungal protocol, doesn't seem to make my head better, at least. Anyway, and was slain in the evening and was buried at night. He who had no, but anyway, they have this source in regards of so-called Yeshu, Yeshua being slain on the eve of Passover, or hanged on the slain. I can't remember what I have to say. Anyway, the source is out there somewhere. I might actually have put it on my Facebook at some point. I don't know. And was slain in the evening and was buried at night. He who had no bone of him broken on the tree. He who suffered not dissolution within the earth, he arose from the place of the dead and raised up the race of Adam from the grave below. It seems like he's saying things again twice in regards of and raised up the race of Adam, man, from the grave below, or earthling. I think actually earthling might be a better word, but anyway, something to look into, because he was created from the earth, right? Anyway. And Adam in Hebrew, and Adamah or something like that, seems to have a link there. Anyway, I raised up the race of Adam from the grave below. This is he who was put to death. And where was he put to death? ? In the midst of Jerusalem. By whom? By Israel. I'm not sure in regards of the middle of Jerusalem. But anyway, it says outside, right, in the Gospels. But anyway, okay, we get it, in Jerusalem. By whom? By Israel. By Israel. Let's see. In the midst. This is he who was put to death. And where was he put to death? In the midst of Jerusalem. By whom? By Israel. Became, I'm not sure why it says became. There seems to be a little. Became he cured their lame. Or I guess, because, it must be because. Because he cured their lame and cleansed their lepers and gave light to the blind and raised their dead. This was the cause of his death. Thou, O Israel, was giving commands, and he was being crucified. Thou wast rejoicing, and he was being buried. Thou wast reclining on the soft couch, and he was watching in the grave and the shroud. O Israel, transgressor of the law, why? The transgressor of what law? Is it the Roman law, or is it, God's law? Anyway, so, O Israel, transgressor of the law, that's the thing. What is the first commandment in the law? To love God with all your being, all your soul, all your heart, and so forward, right? And who is Yeshua? Well, Yeshua is God, right? So if Yeshua is God, the first and foremost commandment, right, would be to love God, right? And actually, it's also actually showing loving your neighbor as well, right? Because you're standing for the truth, right? In regards of everlasting life and so forward. So at the same time, actually, you're fulfilling both of the things of loving God and loving your neighbor. It's the same thing in regards of adultery or stealing or whatever and all that. We see Joseph, for example, when his masters, of the house, master's wife wants to commit adultery with Joseph. And Joseph runs away because he doesn't want to transgress the law of God, So he's showing that he loves God by not transgressing the law of Jehovah. And he's showing that he's loving his neighbor in regards of not having sex with his master's wife. So he's fulfilling those two commandments that the whole law is hanging on. Okay? Anyway, any case. So, it's like people think it's like it's only those two commandments. No. The law are hanging on those two commandments, So, anyway. But But of course, the highest commandment to love God, if Yeshua is God, well, it is a command by the very law of Jehovah to, of course, love him, right? And not hate him. But anyway, and he was being buried, thou wast reclining on the soft couch, and he was watching in the grave, and the shroud. O Israel, transgressor of the law, why hast thou committed this new iniquity? Lawlessness, or lawless act. Subjecting the Lord to new suffering, thine own Lord, him who fashioned thee, him who made thee, him who honored thee, who called thee Israel. I wonder who that could be. But thou hast not been found to be Israel, for thou hast not seen God. I do wonder in regards of Israel. I can't remember what the word actually means. But anyway, maybe that's a thing here. I don't know. For thou hast seen God, nor understood the Lord. For thou hast not seen God, nor understood the Lord. Thou hast not known, O Israel, that this was the firstborn of God, who was begotten before the sun, who made the light to shine forth, who lighted up the day, who separated the darkness, who fixed the first foundation, who poised the earth. I'm not sure what that means. Poised. Anyway, who collected the ocean, in regards to the mikveh, I think it's mikveh. Anyway, who stretched out the firmament, who adorned the world. So who adorned the world? Oh, it seems like he's actually saying that would be Yeshua. Anyway, bitter were thy nails, and sharp bitter thy tongue, which thou didst wet. Bitter was Judas, to whom thou gavest hire. Bitter thy false witnesses, whom thou stirrest up. That was, of course, you shouldn't do false witness, right? Whom thou stirrest up. Bitter thy gall, which thou preparest. Bitter thy vinegar, which thou madest. Bitter thy hands filled with blood. Thou showest thy Lord, and he was, sorry, that's my glasses. I need glasses. Thou slewest my Lord. Thou slewest thy Lord, and he was lifted up upon the tree, and an inscription was fixed above to show who he was that was slain. And who was he? And who was this? That which we shall not say is too shocking to hear, and that which we shall say is very dreadful. Nevertheless, hearken and tremble. So in regards of, he was the king of the Jews. It was written in 3 languages, right? But Melito doesn't seem to go in that direction. So I guess maybe that's the thing that he doesn't want to talk about, in regards. But he's pointing, most people would know what is on the sign. He's the king of the Jews. Anyway, it was he because of whom the earth quaked. He that, of course, the Jews said, we only have one Caesar, right? And that's in regards of the Roman emperor, right? So anyway, it was he because of whom the earth quaked. He that hung up the earth in space was himself hanged up. Wait. Who hanged the earth up in space? And by the way, this is 2nd century, so it's interesting that he might actually know that it's hanging on. Of course, the Bible, I think, actually talks about it. So he might actually just have been reading the Bible in regards of hanging on empty space, right? In some sense. So, it was he because of whom the earth quaked. He that hung up the earth in space was himself hanged up. So he's saying that Yeshua hanged the earth in space. You already see, you see a lot of pointers where he's pointing to Jesus being God. But anyway, he that fixed the heavens, and he actually plural here, that's nice, was fixed with nails. So who fixed the heavens? Wasn't that God? Oh yeah, I think it was God. Okay. So he that fixed the heavens was fixed with nails. He that bore up the earth was borne up on the tree. The Lord of all was subjected to ignominy in a naked body. And what does he say? God put to death. That's pretty clear, isn't it? It's so clear that if you apparently put it forward to, I put, in regards of my main source in regards of the Jehovah's Witnesses, and I read this, and he was just totally twisted. That was the last straw that I had with the false witnesses. That was the last straw I had, because the guy I was talking to was twisting this totally out of hand, not to say what it actually said. That's just, one thing is to say that this, it says that Jesus is God, because it says it on so many levels. Another is to go so far to begin to twist things to say it doesn't say that, That's going too far. Then I'm like, how can I talk to a person like that? That can't even, that was the last straw for me. I'm wasting my time here. I felt like I'm just wasting my time. Of course, it did make me research things, and I actually enjoyed our talks and all that. But that was just to, we got, and the thing is, the more I studied things, the further and further we actually got away from each other. The gap was more and more, and it didn't really. But when I read this and all that, and God put to death, that's pretty clear. It's who is hanging. It's just clear. This is talking about Jesus being God. Now, of course, we have other sources in regards to Melito talking about, I think it was the Passover sermon that we have from him, that he also talks about the Jews putting God to death and all that. But anyway, so God put to death the king of Israel, slain with Israel's right hand. Alas, for the new wickedness of the new murder, the Lord was exposed with naked body. He was, and of course, in regards of the Lord, I do wonder in regards of if that could actually have, sometimes they have a way of changing the name Jehovah to other things, to the Lord, for example. We see that in the Bible multiple times, and we see that in history. It's just, I think it's utterly wicked to do that. It doesn't really show credibility in regards of a translator when they do that. I think it's disgusting, utterly disgusting. And some are actually showing with capital letters that the name should be there, and others doesn't really. It's disgusting. At least the Jehovah's Witnesses or the false witnesses put the name of Jehovah in their Bible. That's at least one of the things they actually correct, and that's correct. So I think it's bullshit when translators do that. I think it's utter. It's dishonest. I think it's utterly dishonest. How can you do that? Tradition, bullshit. Don't give me that. Anyway, he was not deemed worthy even at covering, and in order that he might not be seen, the luminaries turned away, and the day became darkened because they slew God. So twice it says they slew God, and God put to death and all that. That's twice directly saying this, because, they think it was, a doctrine that was, and then you can follow it, long before the Nicene Council and all that. So, people coming up with, the Nicene Council made, Jesus into God and all that. That's outrageous, and it's utter bullshit, And, people that are, promoting this should be utterly ashamed. But of course, it seems like, the people are just promoting, one satanic lie after another. And you do get kind of tired of it, because you run into a lie after another lie, after another lie, after another lie. And you just wonder, why are these people promoting these lies, You would think that people would actually, stand for truth, right? And nope, you have all these liars pretty much, out there promoting all these false doctrines. It's just incredible. And then when you actually show them that they are wrong, they might even continue to do it. It's just incredible. There's so many sources, not only in the New Testament. I read the New Testament and figured out that Jesus was God. But not only the New Testament, reading that, just all the historical sources, and I know other websites have the same thing where people saying that Jesus is not God and all that have collected together. And I don't know if I still have them around. I have two big collections from before the Nicene Council, just one after another. So anyway, and I actually made some videos, but that probably is deleted in regards to the other account. But anyway, he was not deemed worthy even of covering, and in order that he might not be seen, the luminaries turned away, and the day became darkened because they slew God, who hung naked on the tree. It was not the body of our Lord that the luminaries covered with darkness when they set, but the eyes of men. For because the people quaked not, the earth quaked. Because they were not affrighted, the earth was affrighted. Thou smotest thy Lord. And again, I wonder if that might actually have been in regards to the name of Jehovah, but that's, I guess, impossible to actually check, Thou also hast been smitten upon the earth. And thou indeed liest dead, but he is risen from the place of the dead and ascended to the height of heaven. And that's interesting that it's not using the plural form here, but the heights of the heavens, having suffered for the sake of having suffered for the sake of those who suffer, and having been bound for the sake of Adam's race, which was imprisoned, and having been judged for the sake of him who was condemned, and having been buried for the sake of him who was buried. Yeah. And having been judged for the sake of him who was condemned, and having been buried for the sake of him who was buried. Okay, yeah. So this is one of the, Melito's talks. And so that was one of them, at least, in regards of. So I think it's pretty clear that Melito believed that Jesus was God. So he also believed in a 1,000-year reign on earth. So apparently it seems that might be one of the reasons why the Romanizers didn't like him and his readings. He might also have pointed to Rome in regards to being the whore of the Book of Revelation, because apparently he wrote on the Book of Revelation. Would have been wonderful to see what he actually wrote in the 2nd century in regards to the Book of Revelation, wouldn't it? But sadly, we don't have that. Apparently, again, the Romanizers didn't seem to be too happy about him. So maybe because he had too much truth. I think he had a huge amount of truth that they didn't like. He had a huge amount of. But anyway, so another one from Brother Melito, 2nd century Asia Minor, on faith. So let's see. We have collected, this is the second one. We have collected together extract from the law and the prophets. He's not calling it the Old Testament, is he? He's calling the law and the prophets, relating to those things which have been declared concerning our Lord Jesus Christ, that we may prove to your love that this being is perfect reason. Okay. The word of God, he who was begotten before the light, he who is creator together with the Father. So he's creating with the Father. And we have also multiple sources of Christian sources talking about that as well. In regards of, they like when they say, when the gods say, let us make man in our image and our likeness. And it seems most Christians believe that it is the Father talking to the Son, saying, let us make man in our image, in our likeness, But anyway, Elohim in Hebrew is plural. But I can't see if one can verify if it's one or the other speaking. But I guess it might, I guess the Father is the, so yeah, I guess it makes sense if it was the Father. But anyway, but that seems to be something that the Christians believe in the past, that it is the Father talking to the Son, let us make man in our image, in our likeness, and all that. he who was begotten before the light, he who is created together with the Father, he who is the fashioner of man, and again, who is, we are made in the image, of God, right? Or of the gods. Well, we would then be maybe made in the image of Jesus, right? Anyway, he who is the fashioner of man, God is walking around in the Garden of Eve, right? Eve, was it the Garden of Eden? Sorry, Eden. Yeah, my brain is not with me at the moment. It's it is probably if the antifungal protocol here. That is anyway. He who is the fashion, or maybe just because there's so much information. Anyway, he who is but of course my head is not with me as oops, I lost the place. Apparently I pushed something. There we go. He who is the fashioner of man, he who is all in all, he who among the patriarchs is patriarch, he who in the law is the law, among the priests, chief priest, among kings, the ruler, among prophets, the prophet, among the angels, archangel. And that's one of the interesting things here in regards of archangel and all that. Apparently Melito seems to believe that, and there is a lot of links in regards to, but it seems he actually believed that in regards of Michael is actually Jesus here. I'm still very careful of that doctrine. I do see a lot of the links where you see, but anyway, in the voice of the preacher, the word, among spirits, the spirit, in the Father, the Son, in God, God, King forever, so in God, God, King forever and ever, for this is he who was pilot to Noah. Okay, so he was, so again, when you're reading the Torah, you're reading about, and Yeshua said, Moses wrote about me, right? So if Yeshua is the truth, then he's telling the truth, right? Then we should expect that actually to be true, right? So if you go look at the books of Moses, you should expect to find, anyway. So God King forever and ever. So see, God King forever and ever, for this is he who was pilot to Noah, he who was guide to Abraham, he who was bound with Isaac, he who was in exile with Jacob, he who was sold with Joseph, he who was captain of the host with Moses, and who was the captain again? Yes. And actually, because of translation and all that, if you actually look on the Hebrew word, it actually is the same word as, if you actually look into, I think it's the King James Version, you can see that word being translated to multiple English words. So in the Hebrew, you can actually see there's a link, but in the English King James Version, you miss that link, And that's where you actually see that there's a link between, where it's like, he who was captain of the, and I don't understand why translators are doing that, instead of just using one word when it can actually be used. He who was captain at the host with Moses. So he who was captain at the host with Moses, he who was the divider of the inheritance with Jesus, the son of Nun, he who in David and the prophets announced his own suffering. So he who put on the bodily form of the virgin, he who was born in Bethlehem, he who was wrapped in swaddling cloth in the manger, he who was seen by the shepherds, he who was glorified by the angels, he who was worshipped by the Magi, he who was pointed out by John. John the Baptist. Okay, he was pointed out by John the Baptist. That must be John the Baptist, that he who comes after me, I'm not even worthy to, untie his shoe or something like that, or his sandals or whatever. Or his, well, you get the meaning of it, I guess. He who gathered together the apostles, he who preached the kingdom, he who cured the lame, he who gave light to the blind, he who raised the dead, he who appeared in the temple, he who was not believed on by the people, he who was betrayed by Judas, he who was apprehended by the priest, he who was condemned by Pilate, he who was pierced in the flesh, he who was hanged on the tree, he who was buried in the earth, he who rose from the place of the dead, That's actually very nice that he who rose from the place of the dead, the realm of the dead, people have a way of mixing the hell doctrine together with the lake of fire, and it's just, again, I think we can thank the King James Version for that issue. So I don't really, when people are just focusing totally on the King James Version Bible and all that, I'm really not on that page. They say it's like the perfect translation and this and that, and that's pretty much just bullshit. You just look at the name Jehovah. The King James Version, the King James translators knew the name was Jehovah. How many times did they take it out? A lot. I can't even remember it was like nearly 7,000 times. I can't even remember how many times it is. Apparently that information have gone out of my head. But it was a lot of times. They used it like 7 times in the King James Version. So they knew the name. And yet even knowing the name, they didn't put it in there where it should be. So just already there. And people that defend the King James Version in regards of being the, of course we would like an edition that is based on, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying that going to a point where you're saying it's the perfect, version and all that, that's just utter bullshit. And if you just go in regards of the concordance and look into the concordance, in regards of what the you see the Hebrew word and you can put on the strong, push on the, and you can see how many words one Hebrew word is translated into. That doesn't make it easier for the reader, So, and I have no idea why anyone would do that. Why would you use so many different words that actually means the same thing if you could just, go with one word? And it would be easier for the translator as well to understand, hey, there might be a link with these 2 words, as usually people do because they link, words together and all that, and that's how they make a connection. And then you have some other words, you have other words which actually is, where there are 2 different words in Hebrew and then translated to the same thing. So you get into it's not going to work with me in regards of, I'm not saying it's bad, but I'm saying it absolutely has, it's a translation, So I'm absolutely not on that page where I'm, only King James, right? Yeah, well. So what about those in foreign nations that doesn't have the King James and don't read English, They can't read the Bible because they don't read English. Just give me a break. Anyway, I think it's just taking it too far. I do understand that Rome is pushing their own version and all that. That is not, the received text and all that. And usually the versions I have on my mobile is pretty much, many of them is actually based on the received text. You have the Geneva, and then of course you have the King James Version, and then you have, let's see here, Webster would also be, but that's a little like King James Version. Whereas the VW, I think is actually, I think that was also based, that's free actually. I think that was based on, there's other versions that is based, I can't remember at the moment. Apparently things are running out, Anyway, but I thought I had more versions. Maybe I have it on the, in regards over at the other program. I think that's based on the received text in regards of, let's see if we can find them over here. Apparently I've deleted, I guess I don't want to have books 2 places, so when I have them 1 place, I think I have it like, you have the LETV and you have the YLT, which is also based on it. And apparently the ESV 2000, and apparently they retracted that, so you can't get that for free anymore. So that's really bad, because I was like, I wanted to try to delete everything and then download what I needed again and just get it in order. And then I couldn't find the ESV, and yeah, it's just, oh, give me a break, you know. So apparently they retracted that version, so you can't download it, and you know, you get tired of these things, you know. And I had one of the programs where you had the Strongs, and you could just push, you know. I do still have it, you know, in one of the other programs, you know, where I actually paid for, but you know, the other programs are just, you know, it's a slow program, you know. They have like the accordance, you know, it's a very slow software compared to some of the others, you know. And of course it's not free. So where's my glasses, by the way? I'm getting kind of tired that of course my glasses is not the, there we go. Actually, they're not the strength they should be, you know. But it absolutely helps. I should really, anyway. So, he who is buried in the earth, he who rose from the place of the dead, that's nice. He who appeared to the apostles, he who was carried up to the heaven, and it's singular, I'm not sure why it's singular there, but anyway, he was carried up to the heavens, he who is seated at the right hand of the Father, he who is the repose of those that are departed. Not sure what repose actually means. Repose. Let's have a look. Repose. 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 Let's see. Lay at rest. To lie at rest. He is the rest of the. I don't know. Let's see. He who was carried up to the heavens, he who is seated at the right hand of the Father, he who is the repose, okay, the rest of those that are departed, okay, yeah, okay, the rest, yeah, rest of those that are departed, the recoverer of those that are lost, the light of those that are in darkness, the deliverer of those that are captive, the guide of those that go astray, the asylum of the afflicted. The asylum? I don't know, in regards to asylum, that seems a little, you know, usually in regards of a nutcase asylum, right? But maybe it can be understood in another way, like a place for, you know, I guess in regards of when people come from the outside, maybe it's called an asylum actually, okay? So the asylum of the afflicted, the bridegroom of the church, of the church, the charioteer of the cherubim, the captain of the angels, God who is from God, the Son who is from the Father, Jesus Christ, the King forevermore. So, yeah, that was the one more of those. It seems like in regards to the information that it seems like he's also making the link in regards to the angel that we see in scripture. And of course, angel is just a messenger. In Hebrew, it's malach. But I guess we're, you know, translating it to angel. And angel seems to be like something that, you know, and the thing is, a messenger can be pretty much, you know, if someone is sent in another in another man's name or whatever, you know, they come as an angel or, you know, messenger, a malak. Anyway, so yeah, yeah, it's pretty good. Anyway, I think that's all for me at the moment. But of course, Yeshua is God in the flesh, so. The problem, we know that there was two gospels going out very early on in regards to Jesus Christ. And one was with the law and the other was not with the law. And then you have to ask yourself which one would be the real gospel. It seems to be a slightly, one is going out and promoting that Jesus is God and all that, and then destroying the law, leading people into lawlessness and leading away from the law. And yet then you have the other that actually are leading people to the law and Jesus Christ. And then you have to question which one of the gospels are the true gospel, you know. So, you know, what did Jesus upheld? Did he tear down the law, or did he upheld the law? I think Yeshua upheld the law, right? Oh, he broke a lot of the man-made laws of the Pharisees and the leaders and all that. Yeah, pretty much pissed them off. But that was not, the commandments in the Bible. That was in regards of their man-made, laws. And they still do, they still have all these man-made laws. Washing the hands and so forth. When Yeshua is, when they're talking to, hey, why are your disciples not washing their hands before they're eating and so forth? And Yeshua say, whatever goes into the mouth comes out of the, And of course, that is a thing that make people say that everything that we can eat anything and everything, but taking into context from other sources, that doesn't seem to be the thing that Yeshua is saying. Apparently, at least the disciples didn't think that was the case. When we look at the Book of Acts, and even if the Book of Acts is actually a lot about Paul, it's actually taking the focus on the disciples over to the focus on Roman Pharisee Paulus. But as we see, the disciples in Jerusalem did not believe that the law was abolished. And how do we know that? Well, the Book of Acts tells us that they are zealous. They are on fire for the law of Jehovah. So all this Judaism, they don't want, that's all the man-made bullshit and all that, right? But what it says is that they are zealous for the Torah, the law of Moses, and the scriptures. That is what they are zealous for. And so we have one group that is very zealous for that. I wonder why they would be zealous for the scriptures, maybe because Yeshua didn't abolish the law and all. Anyway, in any case, and of course Paul is himself tested on this accord, and James, who is, I think, is the head of the Jerusalem congregation, is telling him, do this to show that there's absolutely couldn't be anything in regards of you actually, that you yourself are keeping to the law of Moses. It was expected, and this is after Yeshua is executed, it was expected that of course Paul was keeping the law of Moses. He couldn't be, there couldn't be anything in regards of, him breaking it down, or, well, I think that could, but anyway, James seems to be in disbelief that this could be the case in regards of, so we know from the Book of Acts that in regards to the Jews, they were absolutely not to stray from the law of Moses according to what information we have. And we know that the Nazarenes went out and, that was teaching, that was two gospels again, one with the law and one without the law. So, and we also have sources where people are reading the scriptures and so forward. So, it's just, so of course Marcion went totally radical in regards to a Pauline Christian, so he only went for Paul and rejected everything else, different gods and so forward in the so-called Old Testament, and the Pauline, and it's just so anyway. And of course, Yeshua himself is saying in the book of Matthew that people that say, Lord, Lord, to him, he will say, I never knew you. Depart from me, ye that work iniquity, lawlessness. Which law are we talking about? Do you think he was talking about the Roman law or the law of God? Anyway, that's... Any case, well, have a good one, all of you. I'm pretty much done for now. And may Jehovah bless you, and may Yeshua be a most precious pearl, and may the Spirit of truth be in us all. Amen. Have a good one. Yep.